Hey friends, Carnivore Invictus here. It is January 7th, 2025. Happy New Year. My last video got taken down by YouTube. I don't even know why. Spreading health misinformation is what they said. I don't even remember talking about the thing that shall not be named. But it kind of makes me... I've made way more inflammatory videos than that in the past. So it kind of makes me wonder if the censorship regime is clamping down in anticipation of a new fake, this avian not flu. But I don't really think that I don't really think they're going to push the avian flu onto us directly. I think they're using it as an attack on the food system. And the farmers are being forced to cull their flocks and their herds, and you're starting to see shortages in eggs for sure. You might start seeing some shortages in some other meat products later on. We'll see. Just to put it in context, over 2,500 people die per day of cardiovascular disease, and one person has died allegedly. Remember when the vid was going on and they were counting people who shot themselves in the head or had headshot wounds or motorcycle accidents? They said, oh, he died of COVID because they died, stage 4 cancer. They died and they detected COVID in them and said that, oh, you're a COVID death. So keep that in mind. And even so, with their fake PCR tests and whatnot, I'm probably going to get this taken down, Jesus Christ. One person has died in 6 months, and the whole country is ready to just flip tables and lose their shit again. And I don't know if I could hold it together this time either. Some people might get punched in the face if they start pulling this again. I don't know if I can handle another one of those again, because I wasn't traumatized by the actual thing, but the way people reacted to it, the absolute disgraceful behavior from most people, the vast majority of people, was absolutely traumatizing, and it's like a very, very bad dream when I think about it. But anyway, this video is supposed to be about carnivore myths and kind of misconceptions, because these carnivore influencers like Steak and Butter Girl will make a post and inevitably the comments get flooded with a bunch of nonsense. And I'm not trying to attack people, because I used to feel the same way. I used to think the same things. Folks, I've been carnivore for almost 2 years, and to be honest with you, when I first heard about carnivore, I thought it was an internet gag, like swallowing Tide Pods or dumping lighter fluid on yourself in the shower and setting yourself on fire. Those challenges that they got people to do back in the day that everybody made fun of, kids swallowing Tide Pods. Man, I can't think of anything worse. Well, I can think of a few things worse, I'm sure, if I thought about it. But man, swallowing a Tide Pod is some really, 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 really stupid shit. But anyway, I used to think carnivore was something along those lines, because of course you need plants, of course you need fiber, and you want to eat meat, of course, but you need Brussels sprouts and broccoli too, right? And it was just all wrong. I'm not saying don't eat these things. I'm saying you don't need them. And in the aggregate, you're probably better off if you don't eat them. Probably. I was pretty much fine on a keto diet that was very high fat, meat based, with some broccoli and Brussels sprouts and asparagus and cabbage, cauliflower thrown in there, some kale. I used to grow a lot of my own food. I made this beautiful 3,200 square foot garden made out of with raised beds made from trees that I cut down. It was an absolute labor of insanity, the most beautiful garden you've ever seen. And then, like, not even a year after I finished building it, I decided I'm gonna go carnivore and not eat plants anymore. But anyway, so I'm not saying don't eat them. But when I went carnivore, I only went carnivore as during bodybuilding prep as a ketogenic bodybuilder, my total food intake was so low that I cut the plants out so that I can focus everything I was eating was either going to be protein or fat. Protein to upkeep my muscles, and fat for my energy. So it didn't really change. It didn't really change the metabolic process because I was already keto. I just cut the plants out, and what changed ultimately on Carnivore was that I had years-long impingements in both of my shoulders that were really nagging, and that was gone within 2 weeks. And I was like, no way, there's no pain in my shoulders anymore. And then I had golfer and tennis elbow in both my arms, very, very uncomfortable to do a lot of things, and that was gone in both arms within 6 to 8 months, I would say, of being on a carnivore diet, because the plants do not want to be eaten, and all plants are toxic. People hear that and they're like, oh, toss the tar, I don't get sick when I eat plant. I mean, like, Anthony Shafee says plants are trying to kill you, and everybody laughs, oh, plants are trying to kill me. And you eat plants all the time and they don't kill you. And that misses the point. They're trying to kill you just because they don't succeed, or just because their damage isn't acute. It's more chronic. That doesn't mean that they're not trying to kill you. They don't want to be eaten. And if you try and kill a deer, the deer can run away. The deer can, impale you with its antlers. They can kick you in the face with its hooves. It's got defense mechanisms, and plants are just stuck in the ground. They're rooted. They can't run away. They can't fight back. Their defense is chemicals, pesticides. And it's mostly geared against insects, but they still negatively impact humans. So they have oxalates and phthalates and phytates, and I believe Anthony Shafee says that there's not a food that you're going to eat that has anything less than 64 known carcinogens. And I believe that's a Brussels sprout, has 64 known carcinogens. That's like the bare minimum. So these plants are toxic, and the toxic is cumulative. And everybody says, oh, the dose is in the poison. And that's not true. Poison is cumulative very, very often, if not always. And I'll give you the most obvious example is a kidney stone, which is caused by the accumulation of oxalate crystals in your kidneys that form these stones. And where do you get oxalates from? You get them from spinach and turmeric and dark chocolate and tea, and just about any vegetable, and a lot of fruits, if not all of them, have oxalates at some, to some extent. Spinach is an absolute oxalate bomb. You should never, ever, ever eat spinach. You say, oh, spinach has iron in it. It's not. Plant-based iron is not the same as animal-based iron, which is heme iron, which is much, much more bioavailable, much, much more, it's far superior. Anything animal-based is going to be far superior than plant-based. And that's, one of the misconceptions about carnivore is people think that food is food, that anything you shove down your gob is food, and your body's just going to digest it and take what's in it and shit out or piss out what it can't use. And that's not how it works. You don't have the biology or the physiology to digest anything plant-based. I mean, you can get a little bit of nutrients from it, but it's always going to be incomplete and inferior to the animal-based version. For instance, your animal-based vitamin D is going to be D3. You get that from like eggs and fish skins and whatnot. The plant-based form is going to be vitamin D2, and guess what kind your body prefers? It's the D3. So if you eat mushrooms, you get vitamin D2. If you eat fish or eggs, you get vitamin D3. And by the way, if you sit out in the sun, expose yourself to sun, your body uses cholesterol to convert the sunlight into vitamin D3, which is actually a not a vitamin, it's a hormone. And all of your hormones use cholesterol as the foundation, as the base. And then they tell you not to eat it, and they tell you to reduce your cholesterol. And you wonder why our testosterone is plummeting, and women's estrogen is all screwed up, and kids' hormonal balances are all out of whack, and they have sexual and gender dysmorphia. So you're going to get all the nutrients you need in the superior form from meat. Your body is designed to digest meat. All this nonsense about red meat rotting in your colon, forming a meat sweater around your colon is absolute fucking garbage, nonsense, lies. What rots in your colon, what rots in your digestive system is fiber, because you can't digest it at all. It goes from your mouth to anus almost completely undigested. The way that other herbivores digest fiber, if you're like a gorilla, they have a very, very large cecum, which is basically like a sink full of bacteria that can digest the fiber. They turn it into branched chain fatty acids, which are fat. They turn the carbs into fat, and that's what the gorilla uses for energy. But the gorilla, everybody says, well, the gorilla eats plants, look how strong he is. And a gorilla is a gorilla, and a human is a human. And a gorilla is a distant cousin from human beings. Not even close physiologically. And a cow has 4 stomachs, and that's how they break down their fiber, when they eat all the grass and the weeds and the beautiful grass and everything that they eat that turns into that the most nutrient dense food on the planet. They have 4 stomachs. And by the way, gorillas have to eat their own shit because their feces has B vitamins in it that they can't get initially from the plants in the form, so after it's digested, they re-eat it, and then they get B vitamins from it. So you are not a gorilla, and food is not food. You are not an herbivore. You are a carnivore. Humans were hyper-carnivorous apex predators for 2 million plus years before the invention of agriculture. And, the invention of agriculture did not alter human evolution enough to make us herbivores. Nothing on any farm exists in nature. Nothing on any farm exists in nature. If you walk out into nature, you will not find food. Almost anywhere and almost any time of the year, you will not find enough plant or fungal-based food to eat to sustain a human being. You will starve. You will die in nature. You can pretend, some of these vegans are like, oh, we're herbivores or we're frugivores. And, and you could probably find enough data and so-called science out there to prove that. But of course, who funds those studies? Usually the WEF, World Economic Forum type people who are trying to push plant-based diets on human beings. And that's why I so forcefully oppose veganism. It's mostly like the on the ground in the trench vegan, your everyday vegan is just a useful idiot, and that's not meant to be an insult. That's what Lenin used to call the university communists and the intellectuals that were pushing. He called them useful idiots. Like they weren't, they were pushing the revolution, but he had no other use for them. So. And the vegans on the ground are not the ones that the vegan movement, it's not a grassroots movement. It's top down, and it's coming from people who are not vegans. It's coming from Jeff Bezos. It's coming from Klaus Schwab. It's coming from Bill Gates. And I can tell you now Bill Gates is not a vegan. Bill Gates loves his McDonald's, but he is most people are on a plant-based diet. That's what's really, really funny. Like they think that, you go get a value meal at McDonald's, and everybody thinks that's a carnivore meal because there's a small amount of meat in it, but it's like 80% plant-based, guys. But anyway, the people who are pushing the meat, the plant-based agenda on people are not vegans. They're gonna eat all the meat that they want, and they want you eating GMO Frankenshit and insects. So that's why I oppose veganism so vehemently. So other issues that people come, don't you need fiber? How do you shit? Not to give too much information, but I just pulled up to the gym. I just left for the gym, and right before I left, I took an absolutely amazing shit. Slipped right out of me. I feel very, very relieved. There's no constipation ever. Now, a lot of people, when they go on carnivore, they mistake going to the bathroom less with being constipated, because when you eat fiber, you're not digesting any of it, so you're just shoving everything through. Nothing, and then, the fiber actually ends up shoving out food that can be digested before it is digested. So you're just cramming, it's like cramming more cars into a traffic jam. And then, of course, all of that fiber shoving everything through irritates your bowels, and that is the cause of irritable bowel syndrome. And it's actually fiber that causes constipation, because it sucks all the water out of your intestines. And if you eat a lot of fiber and you don't drink enough water, you might notice that your stool is like wood. It's like a big giant block, like a brick. And mine certainly is not like that at all. Especially if you eat enough fat and you get enough magnesium, your stools will pass through effortlessly, and you'll poop every single day. And so it's amazing how people can, you say you're carnivore, and everybody laughs and say, how do you shit? Because they just assume that if you don't eat fiber, you can't shit. And it's just not true. And it's just it's an assumption. There's absolutely, if you actually did your due diligence and actually looked into the studies, which I don't care about studies, because the studies say this, they'll say this, they'll say that, and then you got to really dig into the methodology and the conflicts of interest, and it's just too much time to put into it. And that's why I study anthropology. If you study anthropology, that goes back to what I said, that humans were hyper-carnivorous apex predators for 2 million years before the invention of agriculture, which, by the way, immediately caused our height and our brain size to shrink. As soon as we started eating a higher plant-based diet, we got shorter and our brains got smaller, and we're obviously getting more dumb. And that's where all modern so-called human diseases, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, originated from. You don't get these things on a meat-based diet. You just don't, because they're metabolic disorders that are caused by insulin resistance, and you don't get insulin resistance eating meat and fat. It just doesn't happen. It's impossible. If you look at a graph and see what the insulin spike is for each different macro, and it's not even close what protein and fat is compared to carbs. Carbs just blast them into the stratosphere. Fat hardly does it at all, and protein is a very short and sustained insulin boost. Whereas, carbs are like hitting a pop-up into the infield. It goes up, it goes down. So anyway, so I shit just fine. I don't have scurvy. I haven't had a significant source of vitamin C relative to what the daily, RDA is in 2 years. And that is because glucose, which all carbs are turned into glucose. Everybody understands that. If you eat bread, it gets turned into glucose. If you eat pasta, it gets turned into glucose. Even fiber is a sugar. It just can't be digested, but it's a polysaccharide. Saccharide meaning sugar. So you got monosaccharides, disaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. Those are your 4 types of carbohydrates. They're all sugar. So when your blood sugar is spiked by eating carbs, it sucks all the vitamin C out of you. That's why sailors got scurvy back in the day, because the scallywags, the crew, the captain and the officers ate dried meat. They didn't get scurvy, but the the deckhands and whatnot, they all got scurvy because their primary source of nutrients was a carbohydrate biscuit called a hardtack. So all they were eating was carbohydrates, grains and such, and without a supplement of vitamin C, they got sick. That's why they call them limeys, because they had to pack limes on those voyages to give to the crew so that they didn't get scurvy. I have not had a significant source of vitamin C in 2 years, and I do not have scurvy, very obviously. And I don't have a problem building muscle. Now, I will say that if you're a bodybuilder, that if you're trying to pack on large amounts of tissue, then carbs might be what I would kind of label like a performance enhancing substance. Whereas, the regular gym bro like me, who is just trying to be healthy, trying to be jacked looking, you do not need carbohydrates. If you're trying to be Mr. Olympia, if you're trying to pack on 20, 30 pounds of tissue, I tried to test this out, and then I realized, what the fuck am I doing? Because I was like, let me see if a carnivore-based bodybuilder can be successful in competition. And then I was like, well, I'm 50 years old. How am I going to do that? I am exceptional athletically and physically for a 50-year-old person, but do I really want to do this for a prolonged period of time? And then comes all the actual performance enhancing drugs that I don't want to do. So if I was 25 and I had been turned on to this lifestyle, I might have tried to prove that hypothesis. Because everybody's like, where's your carnivore Olympians? Where are your carnivore successful bodybuilders at, and your power lifters? And I will concede that there's probably a science to the carbohydrate that is relevant to a bodybuilder, a competitive bodybuilder, and certainly to power lifters. I mean, I'm never going to be able to be a power lifter at 5% body fat. It ain't happening. So, and I'm not going to put on body fat by eating meat and fat. It just doesn't happen. Anybody who's ever tried it can tell you it's not possible. So there is something to be said about the carbohydrate in the context of bodybuilding and powerlifting. But there are all kinds of extreme athletes, like extreme marathon runners, who run 35, 50, 100 plus miles totally fasted. There's one guy from Australia who ran 5 marathons in 5 days without having a single bite to eat. And you can't do that if you're on a carbohydrate-based metabolism. You can do that if you're fat adapted. So there's some nuance to the athletics in that context. And of course, like I said, I'm not telling anybody not to eat carbohydrates. I'm just saying that, most people who are metabolically healthy can eat carbohydrates, especially if they monitor their intake. If they're keeping track of their intake. I would say that carbohydrates are a dangerous servant and a terrible master. And most people are mastered by the carbohydrate. If you walk out into 93% of the population is metabolically ill, and that is because of a chronic overconsumption of carbohydrates. There's no other reason for it. It is insulin resistance and inflammation, and you don't get that from eating your whole food animal products. You just don't. You get it from eating wheat and refined carbohydrates, seed oils, and sugar. And there's really no difference between the sugar in an apple and the sugar in a Coca-Cola, fructose or glucose, whatever, but they're all inflammatory, they're all highly glycating, and they're all damaging your insides to some extent. Especially if you're not metabolically healthy and you're not, if you're burning the carbohydrates you're consuming for energy, and then that's it. And that's a very, very it's a very, very exact science. But after the energy is burned off, whatever's left over, the insulin converts to fat. And when you do that chronically, you get insulin resistance, where you're eating so many carbohydrates that your body can't produce enough insulin to get it out of your blood, and you end up with chronic blood glucose toxicity, because your blood only has 1 teaspoon of sugar glucose in it, in its healthy, homeostatic state. It's got 1 teaspoon of glucose in it. Anything more than that is toxic. So when you eat sugar, it has to be burned, and whatever is burned off, insulin is released. And one of the primary functions of insulin is to convert excess sugar in the blood to fat to get it out, because it's toxic. Everybody thinks that sugar is the body's preferred energy source because it burns it off first. And that's just not true. It's burning the sugar because it's toxic, and it needs to get it out. So, and you can only do that, in a sustainable, manner if you're metabolically healthy in the first place, and if you are very, 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 very careful with how much carbs you take relative to the amount of activity you're in. So, anybody in that 93% who's already metabolically ill, the first thing you should do is cut out carbs. You can put them back in later if you want to, after you've lost the weight, after you've rectified your high blood pressure, your insulin resistance, your diabetes, your heart disease or whatever. I personally wouldn't do it, but because it's so easy to become addicted and to abuse and to overdo it. Whereas when you're meat-based and you're fat adapted, you just can't overdo it, because the hormones shut you down. When you've had enough to eat, and you let's say I'm on a bulk, I was trying to bulk up on Carnivore. When my body tells me I've had enough to eat and I want to eat more because I'm trying to eat more, I'm trying to put more bulk into my body, my hormones are telling me, no, you don't need to eat, and food absolutely looks disgusting. Like, you could put a ribeye in front of me slathered in garlic butter and I would want to vomit. That's hormones. It's all hormonal. So anyway, I've been sitting here too long. I'm at the gym. I probably didn't go over everything I wanted to about Carnivore. If you have any questions, critiques of what I'm saying, you can leave them in the comments and I will discuss further. Maybe I'll make another video to as an addendum to continue the information. I have no idea what I just even talked about, because I've been going on for so long and going on all over the place, and it's completely unscripted, just driving in my truck. So I'm gonna go kill some back and triceps today. I hope you all are well. I hope you have a healthy and active 2025, and I love y'all. Talk to you later.